I'm excited to show you guys today our version of making bao buns. Now, the first time we ever had bao buns, my husband watched a YouTube video. And here we are making a YouTube video about it. However, I love the bao buns, and we served them when we had a big family gathering here a couple of weeks ago. And as you know, when you are serving and having a bunch of people over, not only do you have the food prep part, but then you also have the getting the house cleaned. Or I don't know about you, but I don't keep my house at the level for company that I want it to be cleaned just all of the time. I wish in a perfect world, but there is nothing to get your house cleaned by knowing you've got a bunch of people coming over. I can do like a month of cleaning in 2 hours. However, I was making a double batch of the bao buns and also trying to clean the house at the same time. And I'm like, oh my goodness, it would be so much easier if I just had a batch of dough in the fridge that I could pull out and I wasn't having to deal with all of the timing of the rising and the punching down and all of the things that go into making buns and bread with yeast. So I thought, what if I take my master dough recipe and make bao buns from this master dough? So that's what we're doing today, and I'm super excited. So if you've not seen this master dough where you've got a big batch of dough that's in the fridge for up to 2 weeks that you can turn into a bunch of things, of course, bread, cinnamon rolls, and now bao buns, well, you're gonna wanna go and check out that video and get the recipe for this dough. But one of the things when you're turning this into other things that you have to do is, because this is a very wet dough, if we're going to be cutting something out and shaping it, we're gonna need to be, and rolling it out, which is what we're doing with this, we have to incorporate some more flour and some other ingredients to get this close to that other recipe. So this is a big batch of this dough, so I'm only gonna be doing a third of this for this bao bun recipe. So I'm just gonna take my bench knife here and we're gonna cut that and then get this scraped out. Alrighty, there we go. Now I'm gonna take a little bit of flour and put it on the surface here because I am gonna knead this dough just a little bit in order to incorporate some more flour and a little bit of baking powder. So the original recipe for this dough is flour, water, yeast, a little bit of sugar, and you can see this is a tacky dough, right? So it's kind of sticking. So you can see the need to use more flour here if I'm gonna be able to work and form and shape the actual individual buns. And the original recipe is a little bit more enriched. It uses a little bit of milk, but I have found that for most of the time when I'm using this for a different type of dough, that it's just fine as long as I've got the liquid there and I'm not actually adding in any milk, which is just a little bit of extra fat. It'll change the texture of your dough a little bit in the finished product, but it usually doesn't alter it a ton. So I'm gonna take some flour here. I know I'm gonna need quite a bit to get this to the point where it's not sticky. And we're gonna put this on the top portion. And then I'm gonna sprinkle the baking powder. I'm gonna do a half a teaspoon for a third of the amount of the dough here on top here. And so then this is just we're gonna knead and work this into this dough. So your goal is just to get enough flour in there so it's not sticky and tacky and sticking to your hands. So it usually takes about 3 to 4 minutes. And you're just gonna keep adding a little bit of flour if it starts to stick and feel really sticky until it's pretty smooth and it's not sticking to the countertop or to your hands. All right, so now we're gonna roll this out. And you'll see that I kind of keep turning this, and the reason for that is I want to feel if this is starting to stick to the counter. So by rolling it and then just kind of shifting it a little bit, about a quarter turn, I can feel if any part needs more flour underneath and if it's starting to get too sticky. That's pretty good. So now we're gonna actually cut out and form our bao buns. So I'm just using a biscuit cutter here, and we're just gonna go straight down. And there's our bun. And then I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger. That's the largest biscuit cutter that I have, and I want them to be just a tad bit bigger. And so I can see that that's sticking just a little bit to my rolling pin, so I'm just gonna put a little bit more flour on there. So now I have got this is just pure avocado oil in a spray, organic olive oil, and we're just gonna do a smear, just a little bit, right on the surface of this bun. And then I just take my fingers and we're gonna just kind of smear that so that it's over. This is what's gonna be the inside. So now I've got my oil here, and you're gonna take it and you're going to, in half, see? So you kind of made like a little taco shell. And then you're going to take your rolling pin and you're going to flatten that out like so. And then this is gonna go in our steam basket that I have prepared here with a liner. And I'm gonna go ahead and just set this in this steam basket as we roll out and make the rest. Now the rest of this dough, which is not a whole lot, I'm just gonna mix this back up, and then I'm gonna let it sit for just a little bit. Otherwise, it's like you try to roll it out and it just wants to shrink back up. Usually means that it needs to relax a little bit, and that's usually what happens after I've incorporated more flour, kneaded it, rolled it out, cut these out, and then manipulated it again. So I'm just gonna go ahead and put this dough back together in a little ball, and then just let that sit and rest while we're prepping these. So these are a steamed bun, which means you can cook them without an oven. In fact, that's the way you're going to have to cook them. But because you've got wood, this is bamboo that's coming in contact with a hot burner and a hot pan, I do soak the bottom basket in some water, usually just like 30 minutes or so, like kind of like while I'm just rolling out the buns and getting them ready, so that it is a little bit damp. It's just an extra precaution, and that's the way that we always do it. So that way you know which one goes on the bottom, the one that's a little bit damp there. And then we're gonna put our top tray on, and then we're gonna put our bamboo lid on. So we've got our whole, there we go. We've got this whole stack here ready to go. Now, of course, you can use a regular cooktop on your stove. So this is great if you only have like a hot plate or something like that and still wanna be able to make bread, you don't have an oven. But we're gonna actually be doing these on the wood stove, because this time of year, I've got the wood stove cranking. It makes more sense to use something that's already going and hot rather than using the fuel on our regular stove. But you can do it either way. So the key is making sure your water is at a boil, because it's actually the steam that we're after in order to cook our buns. And I'm using my cast iron skillet. You can most definitely use a wok if you have one. We've used that too. But I don't actually have a lid for this cast iron skillet. So you can use a cookie sheet to make sure that we've got our water at a boil, and you can actually see it's boiling. I've got steam escaping from the sides here. You may be able to see that from the camera. So we're gonna pull this off and put our buns right there. Now the one thing you wanna make sure of, and I've already checked my water level, is that the level of the water is not actually touching the bottom, the inside, and the buns aren't getting wet. So you do want to make sure that there's space from the top surface of the water to the actual bottom of your buns, and that you've got steam. So we're going to let these go for 8 minutes. All right, our time is up. Let's go ahead and check these babies. Oh yeah, look at that, my friends. So these are still really, really hot. As you can see, the steam is coming off of my baskets here. So we are gonna take these off the heat, and let them cool before we dive in. So after you've let these cool a little bit, because they're gonna be really hot when they come out from the steam, here is our bun. So you can see they've poofed up a little bit during the cooking process, and they open up. Look at that. It's the perfect little like sandwich taco shell is our bao bun. Now you can use these for so many different things. They're great if you do like barbecued beef or barbecued pork. Really anything that you want to put in these is excellent. That's more traditional and kind of the favorite ways we have them, but you could use them with taco meat. You could even do them sweet, like use them for peanut butter and jelly. Whatever you wanted to fill these with, you can. They are really, really delicious. And if you want more from scratch recipes, you're going to want to check out the March Harvest to Table magazine. Comes out every single month with brand new from scratch recipes featuring dishes and foods that are in season. And if you want to get this recipe, the exact instructions, we'll have the link below, and you can head on over to melissaknorris.com where you will see the printable version of this recipe. But now I've got to show you what the texture is like inside. It's really, really good. So it's hard to see because it's just, the dough here. It's not really big and super poofy, but it is an excellent flavor. And you can see it's nice. It's kind of got a pillowy texture, even though it's not really big and super, super poofy. But they do open up and create this great little pocket to hold whatever you want to put inside them. But they're honestly so good. A lot of times I end up eating at least the first one without anything in it at all.